Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another installment of the Small Business Success Summit. My name is Owen. I'm your host, and you can find me at thevideospot.net. You can also follow my personal musings and ramblings on all things, really on all things that I'm involved in, being a dad, business, and just my day-to-day things over at owenhemsath.com. Now, I feel really weird today because I have a picture of myself, you know, right next to myself. I think it would be better if this was like a little marionette. I almost feel like little Owen's going to say something like, you know, shut up, you know, and maybe we could get a bit like that going. But I couldn't find the graphic. I used it for every interview, and I couldn't find it for whatever reason. I can't find it. So I had to put something up. So I hope you guys will forgive me for that little bout of vanity. Because as we all know, it's not about me. It's about you. That's what the whole Small Business Success Summit is about. It's about bringing big business philosophies, big business strategies, and techniques down to the small business community. Because, like, it's great that Amex wants to give us a day, you know, hashtag shop small. But a lot of you guys out there, you know, you're big thinkers, and you got big dreams and big visions just like myself. So that shop small doesn't really do it. So we need to be thinking stronger. We need to be delving into more higher end tactics and things of that effect, and that's why we put together the summit. And I want to thank you guys for joining me today. So that's my opening monologue. Today we've got a phenomenal guest. It's a gentleman that I came across just recently, and we've been able to develop a relationship. We're doing business together. And after learning more about his podcast and his platform and just knowing the way that he speaks, very engaging speaker, I asked him to come and talk to us today about a topic that you're not going to hear anywhere else, but it is so important. It boils down to the art of making good decisions. And so I'm really excited for today's presentation, and I really think you're going to enjoy the content. So I'm going to turn it over to our speaker today, Mr. Chuck Gallagher. Chuck, are you there?
I am. And Owen, I love the idea of having little Owen speak. That would be I was cracking up when I heard that. That would be the real deal.
Well, we'll have to go with that then. It's on the books for next time.
Perfect. Well, listen.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, it's great to be a part of the Small Business Success Summit. And, you know, I guess what I would say, Owen, when someone says, well, tell me a little bit about you, I go back a number of years, as you can tell by the very light gray hair there. But back in the 80s, I was a small business success story. I was a tax partner in a CPA firm. I had testified before Congress, written articles in national magazines, taught continuing education courses in 30 states. So for the area that I was involved in, there was a lot of success.
Yeah.
But I was what I call overextended and underfunded, which basically means I had way too much debt. Yeah. I believe that success was all about the car you drove, the watch on your arm, the clothes on your back, the house you lived in, and back in the 80s it was all about leverage. And so the unfortunate side is, with all of the success that I enjoyed, I also made some incredibly stupid choices. And those choices led me to create a Ponzi scheme. Now, Owen, didn't know what it was called at the time, but I think Mr. Bernie Madoff has made that fairly famous or infamous at this point in time with the magnitude of the theft and defalcation that took place.
And a Ponzi scheme is like, you know, where funds are being transferred but no service or product is being rendered.
Yeah, fundamentally, what the easy way to put it is I needed money. I'm just very candid. I needed money to help fund the lifestyle, so I convinced people that I had an investment that they should participate in. Well, they did. They trusted me. And so if you invested in this investment, then okay, great. Well, that gave me a source of funds. But in order to repay you, I needed to ask someone else. And so I got someone else to give me money that helped repay you, and then someone else to someone else. But I say this, it didn't start off that way.
Yeah.
It didn't start off with the concept of I'm going to be a liar and a thief. started off so small and so innocent and so insignificant that before I knew it, I was head over heels involved in something that ultimately sent me to federal prison.
So you were like a real legitimate bad guy.
Yeah, I was a real legitimate bad guy, while I was a really legitimate good guy. And that's the weird part, because, fundamentally, really good guys can make really bad choices and become really bad guys, and no one necessarily will know.
Yeah, that's very interesting. That's a very intriguing question regarding your topic.
So in my case, I guess the best way to put this was, while I am not proud of my past, and some people listening will say, this is a small business success summit. Well, what does a guy going to prison have to do with small business success? And the answer is two parts. One part is, I'm the poster child for how easily and quickly small business success can erode into a dramatic failure. And the other side to the coin is I also learned something. When I took those steps, physical steps, from the car into federal prison, 23 steps, physical steps, which I didn't want to take, as you can imagine, but I learned while I was there that every choice we make in life has a consequence.
Yeah.
And you can't avoid the consequence. I mean, if you make great choices, you will enjoy the positive consequences from those great choices. But as soon as you make a stupid, dumb choice, then there will be a consequence. And contrasting, 1985 to 1990, which seems eons ago for most people, to where we are today, those choices and consequences come far more quickly.
So, talk to us about that, about making good choices. I mean, is making good choices a function of mathematics, where A plus B equals the choice, and that way I'm sure I can always make the right choice? I mean, as business people, we come across some pretty tough situations. Do I do this? Do I do that? No one's gonna see this. No one's gonna know about that. How do you formulate kind of the subconscious or some way of systematically making good choices?
Okay, so that's a great question. So let's sit back and say, if we subscribe that every choice has a consequence, how do I make choices? And I'm going to boil it down to real simple. I'm not a rocket scientist, so I think people can apply. So every choice that we make is comprised of three components. Component number one is need. What is the need? What is it that I have a need for? Whatever that may be. Component number two is opportunity. And component number three is rationalization. So let's sit back for just a moment and say, I'm going to make it real simple. What was my choice for lunch today? Okay, well, number one, by lunchtime, most of us get hungry. So we have a need. I need to eat. Got to feed myself. All right, no problem. There's my need. Number two, well, but I've got this video interview that's taking place, and so I can't be gone too far, or the car's being repaired, or whatever the circumstance. So I'm limited geographically, perhaps, or monetarily, perhaps. So my opportunity is, well, what's close by? Okay, well, great. So my need can be met with the opportunity of what's close by, and I know I really need to eat healthy. By the way, I know I do need to eat healthy, and so many people say, well, you need to be gluten-free, and you need to be this and that and the other, and all of these things, and so, but the food truck is just down the street a block away, and oh my goodness, they've got some of the best barbecue sandwiches, but it's meat, it's barbecue, it's cooked on a food truck, it's charred, it's got wheat bread and all of the things I shouldn't have, but golly, it's good. And I mean, it's one sandwich,
Right.
How's that going to impact me? Now, as stupid as that example may be, those three things came together: need, opportunity, and you rationalize it. Now, I'm going to go down a different road for just a second, but I want to kind of point this out. I believe that people should naturally act ethical. And I also believe if you ask people, do you act unethically? Would you voluntarily choose to make an unethical choice? They're going to tell you no.
Right.
Okay? So I'm in a meeting the other day, and I asked the group, I said, how many of you would voluntarily make an unethical choice? Nobody raised their hand.
Right.
Okay. Let me ask you another question. How many of you believe that voluntarily breaking the law is unethical? Everybody raised their hand. Okay. How many of you believe that lying is unethical? Everybody raised their hand. Then I said, how many of you drove on the interstate highways in the past 2 weeks? And most everybody raised their hand, and then they started looking around because the next one started to get obvious. And how many of you voluntarily drove 5 to 10 miles over the speed limit on the interstate highways in the past 2 weeks? And then the hands start going up kind of slow, and it's like, so let me get this. You voluntarily broke the law, you said that's unethical, and you said that lying is unethical, so you told the truth, but you didn't, because you said you wouldn't act unethically, but yet people do.
That's fascinating.
And the thing about it is, as long as it's socially acceptable, people tend to believe that there's some gray. It's socially acceptable to break the law and drive 5 to 10 miles over the speed limit. Just like some people believe it is socially acceptable to cheat the government out of tax money by not reporting perhaps all of their income, or if it's cash, it never quite sees the tax return. Or if it's a deduction where you're taking your wife or kids out, but you can fudge it by saying it's someone else. I mean, isn't that okay? And the problem becomes, once you start down the slippery slope, one little stupid choice, justified, takes you to another one that becomes justified, and it's possible then that you get so far down that slippery slope, not only are you making unethical choices, but you're making illegal choices. And that will earn you an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs.
Do you think that those decisions, you talk about that slippery slope, do bad decisions become natural at some point in that journey, do you think?
Owen, I would say they become natural to the extent that there appears to be no consequence.
Right.
Now, here's a perfect example. I was, by the way, this is not me. I want to be real clear with this. But I was in a seminar out in California, and I said, okay, let's talk about this need, opportunity, and rationalization for a second. Let's just see how it plays out. So, as a man, I've been married 15 years. I'm making this up, by the way, but as a man, I've been married 15 years. The spark isn't there. It's not as sizzly as it used to be. I'm sitting there thinking to myself, oh, man, you know, I need to feel like the man again.
Yeah.
Here I am. Go down to the bar. It's March Madness. I'm sitting there watching Duke lose. And this really nice young lady comes slithering up, sitting down beside me at the bar in my hypothetical example, and we're sitting there talking about Duke, and she said, you know, I went to Wake Forest, and we strike up this conversation about how both of us hate Carolina, and we're watching the game, and she seems interested, and I'm sitting there like, oh man, you know, I must have that little something, because, you know, here's this 20 years my junior talking to me, and we sit there, and I'm thinking, this is pretty cool. And then she says, you know, it's awfully noisy here, and sets down a key at the bar, and she said, you know, if you want to join me in my room, we can finish watching the game there. Now, my need, I want to feel like I'm sexy. The opportunity, she just laid before me. Now, the rationalization side of it would be, well, I'm in Los Angeles. I'm half across the country away. Who's gonna know? And I used that example at a seminar that I was conducting, and when the seminar was over, a man came up to me and he said, "Man, who told you?" I said, "Who told me what?" He said, "You know that example you used." He said, "Who told you?"
Wow.
I said, "Nobody told me." He said, "That was me last night."
Wow.
Now, the reason I use that is because as long as you think you won't get caught, it becomes, as long as you can rationalize it. I'm not going to get caught. My wife will never know. You know, I just need to have this experience. As long as you think you won't get caught, it becomes easy to make the wrong choice because life's out of balance. Now, and let me put it this way to kind of bring this back to a different place. If his marriage was rock solid, if he felt like he was the man and his wife just adored him and sex was good and so forth, then his need, opportunity, and rationalization never would enter his mind to even be concerned about it. He'd carry on a conversation about a ball game, and that would be the extent of it. But when life gets out of balance, that's when it becomes incredibly important to think about the choices that you're making, because an out of balance life puts you in a position where the need becomes so great that you're what's the word I'm looking for? You will take whatever opportunity seems to easily come into play and rationalize it to bring things back into balance.
Wow, those are some pretty deep points. So let's kind of let's take a zoom out and see where we're at. We're talking about business ethics, right? We're talking about what is ethical, and we're going to relate that to our business. And you've brought up some pretty great examples of choices that we, one, a silly choice, food, and how these three components play in. And then you've taken it to, kind of a more dramatic example that I think we can all relate to, especially those of us that travel for the work that we're in, and we know about conferences and hotels and things like this. What about some of the other decisions, like going to the bar after work? And I'm not talking about alcoholism. I'm just talking about I've got stuff to do. I'm on deadline, and I'm going to go to the bar, or I'm going to stay up a little bit late tonight. Do those types of everyday circumstances apply as well? Is that an ethical thing? Or is that more of a business decision thing? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, number one, I think it's a life decision. I've got a big report I've got to do tomorrow, but I'm going to go down to the bar, have a beer. I'm gonna clear my head, as long as I'm willing to come back and do what needs to be done.
Yeah, that's cool.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay, so let me cut that part out and send it to my wife real quick, just so. I'm kidding. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No. That's okay. I get that. The question, Owen, kind of comes back to this. From a life perspective, is the choice I'm making going to enhance or grow my business to help me create business success? That would be one side. Or is the choice I'm making, does it have the potential to derail that success or my business?
Those are great, I think, questions that we could put up on like our mirror or on our dream board or something, on your car windshield.
Right. I agree. And here's the thing, and I'm going to use a very current example for us, and one that's pretty dramatic. In the sports world, I think everybody in at least the fall of 2014 has heard the Ray Rice story.
Yeah.
Here's a guy who is a multimillionaire, incredible player, Hall of Fame potential kind of guy. He's really, really very good at what he does. Now, if you had said back in March or April of 2014, hey, Ray, let me ask you a question. Are you going to do something so stupid that it will get you kicked off the team, potentially banned by the NFL, and make you the poster child for something you have no intention to be involved with? No. Well, the same thing is true for most of our businesses, the people that we're involved with or that are watching this. You know, you sit back and you look at your business and you say, oh, no, there's not, I wouldn't do anything like that.
Right.
You wouldn't until life gets out of balance. Now, Ray and his fiance get in an argument. It's a heated argument. He's fussing at her, she's fussing at him. It's in your face, back and forth. It's ugly. They get on the elevator, because, by the way, nobody knows anything on an elevator. She spits in his face, and I'm not defending him. I want to be real clear about this. I'm not defending what he did, but I can hear in his head, shut up. That was his need. Just shut up. So the only thing
got my face. No.
Yeah, he instinctively, to shut her up, decks her. Now, she's knocked out. The elevator door opens. Someone's standing there. Of course, everything's being recorded on the elevator, which, by the way, most people don't think much about. Hence, don't pick your nose on the elevator or do something you don't want somebody to see. Let's put it that way. But, you know, now the rest is history. Because it wasn't that he wanted to be the poster child for domestic abuse, and it wasn't that he wanted to derail his career, and it wasn't that he wanted to be cut from the team that he loved. None of those things were true. But his life quickly got out of balance, and he made a choice that took him from success to immediate negative consequence. And today, the world we live in, you know this better than I, but today the world we live in, everything's instantaneous.
Yeah.
I mean, you go to Ferguson, Missouri, which has been, you know, the flashpoint for police and racial tension. Well, as soon as something happens, what do people do? Especially if they're young, they take their phone and start recording it. They're not going to help the person. They're going to record the event, and it's going to go up on YouTube in a matter of moments. So 30 years ago, if that had happened, one, it wouldn't have been recorded on the elevator, and two, nobody would have seen it, and it wouldn't have been broadcast like it's been to have that immediate consequence.
Yeah, and you know what? It's this emotive, instantaneous, instinctual decision, right? And again, not defending him. I mean, the story that I hear it told, it's I don't even like hearing the story. But here's a guy who's in football, high energy, you know, maybe high strung. I don't know. I think there's a lot of muscle memory there and hustle and things like this. So unfortunately, I think that hit was instinctual for him. He made that emotive decision. So how do we like check our motives, like and our you know, I was a quick tangent. I'm listening to Gary Vaynerchuk's book from '09. It's called Crush It, and he says that the best lesson he ever learned was patience and how to be patient with his business so that he wouldn't make emotional decisions. And he goes into this one time where he buys baseball cards for way more than he could ever sell them for. He made an emotional decision. So I guess there's like, you know, how do we avoid, and we've all done it, right? You've all been in that, like, I do it. I see a new camera, and it's like, well, we had a good month. Let's buy the camera, you know? I like that. I like that camera. Instead of backing off and saying, okay, let's put that on the list, let's analyze that, and let's make a business decision. How do we get out? You talked about life and balance. How do we get to a place where our instinct is to make a good ethical decision, right? To make good choices naturally?
Well, one of the things, Owen, that you said is, and I think it was really quite brilliant, is this whole issue of emotion. Okay? Most people, most really great business people are able to recognize when emotion starts to rise and step back.
Yeah.
So if we're sitting here and we're saying, okay, well, wait a minute, every choice comes down to need, to opportunity, and to rationalization. Those are the three components. The first, I need to take it from the subconscious to the conscious. Okay? There's a need or a perceived need. You know,
right.
The emotion says, man, I need that new camera.
Right.
The opportunity is, you know, Amazon or B&H or whoever it happens to be, and man, they got a special on that camera, and they're appealing to your emotions.
Yeah.
The rationalization would be, hey, but we had a good year. Or you could say, well, time out. Does what I have serve the needs of what I'm doing? Because if my business success is to drive more revenue and to create a more prosperous bottom line and to create greater prosperity in my life, who is being prospered by getting the latest new gizmo? And that's the person that's selling it, not necessarily you who use it. You know, it's like me going out and buying a brand new iPhone when I have one that works perfectly.
Which, by the way, I think by law you have to do every 2 years now.
You know, by law, you're probably right. And the only thing that I know is my 5S is working, and I can't upgrade for at least 6 more months. So at least in 6 months, there'll be some new something that's getting ready to take place, or maybe I'll hold off until October of next year.
I know, right?
An emotional buy.
That's Apple legislature right there. You know, it's everyone must buy a new phone and keep this economy going. But you know, those are great points, and I feel like it can be very hard to recognize. I know that it has been for me. You know, this is my 3rd year in business. My first year, I was so excited that I was in business, that it was just like anytime a check got cashed, you know, we'll go do this. You know, we'll buy this new thing, and we'll look like more of a business without actually taking the time to contemplate why am I, you know, stepping back from that and really taking an external look, you know. So how do we you know, how do we make decisions, and how is it that, you know, people that seemingly have great intentions make really poor decisions?
Well, a lot of us, Owen, and I think this is true with those of us that have an entrepreneurial spirit and are probably type A personalities. We know we want to be in business, and we want to have success, and that's great. Do we have a plan? And most people cringe at a business plan. But I will say, great people have at least a longer range view of what is it that I intend to do. What is my expectation? What is my desire? What is my long-term goal? Because if I know, for example, that I have long-term goals to do A, B, and C, then what takes place in the short term, that short-term decision I measure against, is it getting me there or not?
Yeah.
Now, yeah. I'm like you. I like tech.
Yeah.
However, I have to recognize I can spend money on the newest gadget that isn't going to produce anything different for me than what the current gadget produces. And so I can make the same amount of money with my current gadget sticking to the plan, because, you know, I can spend money on new microphones or new lighting equipment or whatever it happens to be, and you and I can work together to create a new YouTube brand and channel, and that's wonderful. But if it's doing that just for the fun of it or to serve my ego, it's not helping me get to the longer term goal. So the question for most people in a small business summit would be, am I willing to identify what is my objective 5 years from now? What do I want to have happen? And then sit back and say, okay, need opportunity rationalization is how decisions are made. Now, when the time comes to make the decision, if I'm conscious of those things, is that decision advancing me to that 5-year goal? Or is it that emotional thing? And I have found, there's a good friend of mine, he's from West Virginia. In the old days, he used an overhead projector, and he called it a West Virginia PowerPoint. And I was quite fascinated at him. He has some very interesting perspectives from the great state of West Virginia. But one of the things that David did is he said, anytime I felt an emotion that was trying to drive my decisions, I had a rule: do nothing for 24 hours.
Oh, it's such a great rule.
Simple, easy. Emotion is driving me to do this. Stop. Go 24 hours. And then ask yourself the question, do you feel the same way? And at least after 24 hours, can you evaluate that against what your objective is in your business? And he told me,
sometimes just walking away, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you know, he said to me, and it was classic. He was a a very successful man, and did very well for himself. But it was interesting because one day he had this inclination. There was a new car of some sort that had come up, and he kind of was excited about it. And he was like, "Man, I need to go buy a new car." And he said he went to the lot, and then it hit him. Man, he was being sucked into the emotion of the experience.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
And he said, "You know what? I need to walk away." And he walked away, and then he sat back and he thought to himself, I could walk on this lot, satisfy my emotion, and know that as soon as I drove off the lot, I'm losing money. Is this getting me where I want to go?
Yeah.
And then he said, well, actually, my other car is getting me where I want to go, so why would I do something that's not moving me in the direction of my dreams?
Yeah, that shiny object syndrome, right?
Absolutely.
And those are such strong strategies for sorry, I'm beeping and I didn't realize I didn't turn my cell phone off. For everyday business decision making. Let's take an actual moment here and ask the audience to engage with us. I'm so selfish. I'm like so wrapped up in the topic. I forgot to engage with the audience. How do you right now, audience, make better decisions? What are you doing right now to stop yourself or to check yourself against the decisions that you're making? Share some of your techniques or your tactics or your thought processes with us in the comment section below this video if you're watching on the web page, the viewing page. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can leave a comment in the comments below the video on YouTube. But be sure to tag me and Chuck so that we can engage with you and talk with you kind of through this process. We'd love to know what your guys' what your thoughts are and to see you engaging with each other. I myself, those are great strategies. Walk away from the emotion, and then the other one being, just checking, is it aligned with your goal? What happens when the id wins? You talked about your life being out of balance. Can we go into that a little bit more?
Sure. When life's out of balance, something will win, and the question becomes, what is going to be the consequence of a really stupid choice? In my case, the stupid choice led me to federal prison. That was a pretty significant consequence. Now, I made restitution to the people that I had stolen money from. By the way, doesn't make it right.
Right.
I made restitution. The local district attorney didn't want to prosecute me. I lost everything, license as a CPA, business, etc. I lost it all and had to start life completely different. Of course, the federal government felt that because I had a national presence in my particular field, that losing it all wasn't quite enough. So the Department of Labor came in and said I needed to be incarcerated because I embezzled money from a retirement plan, and I happened to be an ERISA expert. And the IRS came in and said, well, you need to be incarcerated because you didn't pay tax on stolen money. Which never crossed my mind.
Yeah.
1040, line 23, other income, stolen money. Who would think to do that?
And should the government really be in a position to say to earn off of stolen money?
Well, you know what? Income from any source, unless excluded, is taxable. And I say this, Owen, and I say this. It's kind of a little bit of a digression, but one of the things that I find often with small business is the concept of the government shouldn't be in my pocket.
Right.
Therefore, the concept of somehow I am entitled to hide from the government my income and so forth. Let me share with you. I learned the hard way. Don't try to hide it, because if you are caught, perfect example, Wesley Snipes, the actor, 3 years in federal prison. Now, he was in 3 years in federal prison not because of evading tax. It's just he didn't file his return. And, that price is a steep price to pay. So regardless of the belief whether you should or shouldn't, just comply with the law, because not complying is pretty tough.
I think that's a great point, Chuck, and I'm challenged with it. I see that a lot of that same attitude of I'm being overtaxed, so I'm going to like two wrongs. I'm going to do this wrong to somehow right that wrong.
Right.
How so the law is certainly one source of determining what is the ethical thing to do in the situation. But if it came down to like a white lie to a business partner or to a client, even, like, oh, I didn't get this done because my mother got sick, but I'll get on it this week. How and this is probably kind of an esoteric question, but like where do we derive our ethical standards from, especially in an environment where there's so much different speculation on like spiritual thought, you know what I mean, and like where we're, do you know what I'm asking?
I do, and I think, Owen, the thing for most of the people who are participating in the Small Business Summit is to look at it and ask yourself this question. Look, I don't know if you're going to tell me a lie. If I said, Owen, how's our project coming? And you said, man, I've got it, everything pretty well done. I should have it to you by Monday, and you haven't started. I'm not going to necessarily know that, okay?
Right.
I get it. The question, however, is not about that. The question goes to, what would happen if by chance I found out you were lying to me? Would I choose to do business with you? And let's just say, for hypothetical purposes, that I found out you were lying to me, and therefore, no, I don't want to do business with you. Would you be okay then if I decide in social media to say, look, the guy tells you one thing, but it's not the truth? Would you be all right with that?
Right.
And that becomes kind of an interesting standard to judge things by.
I think that's great. I'm going to put that somewhere in writing. Maybe I'll tattoo it somewhere. But I think it's tough. Because what about those situations where you just don't know because you're an inexperienced business person? Like, we all are. There's things about social media business Donald Trump doesn't know, right?
Sure.
I've said it in my marketing. The reason businesses fail is because business owners stop learning and growing and becoming prepared for new situations. What do you do when you just don't know what's right or wrong? And you're saying take a look at the consequence, like play it out in your mind.
Yeah, play it out in your mind. And here's honestly, here's the problem today. Now, I'm going to say this because I got more age on me than you have on you at this point in our life, and I always will. But the reality of it is this. In the old days, I had probably more time to think about it.
Yeah.
But things happen so fast today.
Yeah.
We were talking about emotion, and here you are, you're involved in your business, whatever your business happens to be, and something pops up. And what you're getting ready to do may not have anything directly to do with your business, but here's your business. I'll give you a perfect example. There's a guy by the name of Desmond Haig. Now, most people who listen to this are going to, who's Desmond Haig? Well, Desmond Haig was the CEO of Centerpoint, which happened to be the concession venue for over 300 concessions in major sports arenas and major arenas.
Like an Aramark.
Yeah, so he's a big shot. Now, not many people may have heard of them, but he was a big shot. He was president.
Big company.
Yeah. So his friend says, hey, listen, I'm going to be out of town. I got a new puppy. Can you can you look after my puppy and take him out and so forth and so on? And Desmond says, yeah, dude, no problem. Happy to do it. Everything is cool. He takes the dog out. I'm thinking, who took the dog out? Anyway, he takes the dog out, and the dog's a pup. It's a Doberman pup. So he's going to do what a pup does. And Desmond's just freaking irritated at this dog. Now, yeah, another elevator story. He gets on the elevator, irritated at the dog, door closes, nobody's there, and he's pissed. So he kicks the dog. He jerks the dog up by the neck. He's just irritated. He does it on the elevator. It's recorded, of course. And the people, God only knows who monitor this said, that wasn't right to treat an animal that way. Take the tape, release it, and Desmond now is no longer the president and CEO of Centerpoint.
Wow.
Now, you sit back and you look at it and you ask yourself the question, would the choice that I'm making right now, if somebody were videoing it, audio recording it, or whatever, would I be okay with that choice? And straight up, I have to believe that the great majority of what we do in life right now is recorded.
Yeah. I think that's actually kind of a safe way to go to go about thinking about it too. You know what I mean? And as much as we like are paranoid by that, it's going to force you to make better decisions, right? Because you're going to make a different decision based on the consequences of the community, right? What's going to happen to you?
What's going to happen to you? Absolutely. If you're a small business owner and you sit down, and I'm not trying to be paranoid with this statement, but if you sit down and one of your employees comes to you, and as a male, let's assume it's a female employee that comes to you, and she's good, easy on the eye, let's put it that way. Yeah. And you're like, man, nice looking girl right there, and she says, hey man, can we talk? Sits down at the desk. What do most people do? At least I set my cell phone down on the desk. Well, I have to assume anybody that sets their cell phone out in public, even if it's stuck in their pocket, most of those could be on record. So let's say for hypothetical purposes, you fired her best friend, or you didn't give out any Christmas bonuses this year, or she didn't get the job that she wanted or what she thought she was entitled to, and sits down and says, I'm going to carry on a conversation. I'm going to flirt a little bit. I'm going to do something that will catch you off guard, and as soon as I've caught you off guard, I now have leverage, because if you're going to make my life less than what I want, guess what? I'll do the same.
Right.
Now, as unfortunate as that is, the reality of it is, in the environment that we're in today, we have to assume that's taking place.
And here's the thing, is that it takes a lifetime to build a reputation. What is it, like 20 years to build a reputation and 2 minutes to destroy it?
Absolutely.
And at big business levels, as presidents and CEOs, or maybe CMOs or CTOs of our small companies, and we use those terms rather liberally, because we are the CEO of our own company, even though we're only doing 50 grand a year, whatever the case might be. Or even $1 million a year, but there's no board. Right. You're a business leader. You hope that someday there will be a board. And you think about all the, where you're going to be in 5 years or 10 years. Like your business is successful. You're now a big shot in the community. The mayor knows you. The city council members. If you get to where you probably want to go, if you're on this summit, you're an ambitious person, right? You're spending your downtime watching trainings. So you're ambitious, you get popular, you get famous. Wouldn't it be nice to already have the ethical muscle memory?
Yes.
To just know that these things exist, and know that, yeah, there could be people with ill intentions that want to sue you or get you to say something stupid so they could put it on the news. But because you've already been training, you have these things in your body, and that's kind of what you show people how to do, right?
It is, and I think that's probably, Owen, one of the biggest things that's interesting to me is companies will spend inordinate amounts of money to teach people how to make sales calls, to teach people how to prospect, to teach people how to grow a business. I mean, we'll spend lots and lots of time and energy in that. We don't, however, tend to teach people how to naturally make the right decision, to recognize when something's out of balance, it's out of balance. Now, how do we make the right decision when things seem to be topsy-turvy?
Right.
I use the sports analogy. If it's Michael Jordan, he was the first to practice and the last to leave, and he was always shooting free throws at the beginning and the end, because he knew, without any doubt, when he was playing for the Bulls, that if it was toward the end of the game, especially if it was close, they were going to give the ball to Jordan and he would be fouled. Yeah. And he knew when he stood up at the line and everybody's going crazy and doing all of the stuff they do, he would take the ball and it would go in. Because he had muscle memory. He didn't have to think about it. He didn't have to worry about it. He knew when the time came, he'd do the right thing. If we can teach and train that concept of having a natural positive response when things are out of balance, then we know we would naturally make the types of choices that need to be made that we don't have to worry about or think about.
Amen, man. And then you go to bed feeling good about yourself.
Yes.
You go to bed without any of these open loops in your mind. What if they find out about this? What if so and so finds out that I did this? And what if my wife, learns about X, Y, and Z? And I'll tell you what, that's no way to live. And I don't know if I shared this with you, Chuck, but I've shared it on my personal blog. I've had my 20s was I was a kid. I was a kid up until 25. And I've been to jail 4 times. All of that. Making bad decisions,
right.
And being irresponsible. And there was a time for me at around 25, 27 where I looked at my life and I was like, I'm nowhere close to where I thought I was going to be when I was 18,
Right.
I graduate high school, I got these big dreams, going to be an actor, going to be a producer. And it's just like, a series of bad choices. That's when I started becoming really attentive to the types of decisions that I was going to make from then on. And I said, I don't want to go to bed at night thinking, what if they track me down? You know what I mean? Right. What if they find me? And you start to change your thinking. Now, so that's my personal story. I feel like you shared a ton about having gone, we've all been in some place in our life where we've made bad decisions, and that's why I'm so intrigued by your topic. Now, you wrote a book, I believe, that helps. What does your book talk about? Some of these strategies and how to know when you're out of balance. Tell us a little bit about your book.
Yeah, I wrote a book entitled "Second Chances: Transforming Adversity into Opportunity," and what happened, Owen, was a decade following prison. A decade after I was released, I was a senior VP of sales and marketing in a public company. And people kept asking me the question. They said, whoa, time out. How does a convicted felon be a senior VP in a public company after, WorldCom and Enron and Sarbanes-Oxley and all of this stuff? And right. The answer is every choice has a consequence. So I chose to be transparent and to make those types of choices to build a new small business approach that would take me to a success level that I wanted to achieve. So the book it uses the story, but it illustrates the points about yes. how we can transform our life. Because you know what? Everybody probably, now I don't know, there are a few exceptions, but most everybody has some adversity in life.
Yep.
and most of us are looking for how do we create those opportunities that we really want. And having been on both sides of the fence, I'm kind of now uniquely qualified to be able to talk to people about how you do transform adversity and find that second chance in life.
It's such a great topic, and it's such an exciting. We hear a lot, of this transformative life procedures, transform your life, and transformative tactics and things like this. But what I like about your approach is you've actually started backwards, and you're telling your story and how you did it, in hopes that other people might be able to learn from that, whether you've made bad, jail type mistakes or not. Maybe your business just isn't where you want it to go, isn't where you want it to be. You look back at the end of the year, you realize you spent too much money on things you didn't need. Now you got a garage full of, vitamins or something.
Right.
Whatever that case is. So, I think that your topic of business ethics is phenomenal. Now, you said that you were going to give a couple of the books away. Tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, what I would say is I've got 20 books that I will be delighted to give. Now, here's the way you get it. Send me an email, chuck@chuckgallagher.com. And the first 20 I receive that says, I attended the Small Business Success Summit and I'd like a free copy of your book, send me your address. I will be delighted to send you an autographed copy of that.
That's awesome.
And I would also add to that, I have found over the years when I'm transparent and say, here's what's taken place in life, I get a number of people who say, I need a little help, I need a little direction. There were people in my life who appeared, so to speak, and helped me when I needed help the most. So I can't actually repay them. There's not enough money to repay
right.
what they did. So my pay it forward is I'm also open to talk with people. And I typically will get, people every week that will email me or call. You can go to my website, chuckgallagher.com, and say, listen, I've had this challenge in life. How do I get things back on track? And again, that's kind of my pay it forward. I don't mind being able to do that or willing to do that.
That is a great offer, and I appreciate your generosity. So you heard it here, guys, on the Small Business Success Summit. If you're one of the first 20 to email Chuck after watching this, and we launched this on December 16th, then I'll put the link on the page, but I'm not going to put why it's there. So you have to have watched the presentation to understand what he's looking for in the email. So you got to put in the email, hey, I was just on the Small Business Success Summit and want an autographed copy of your book, right?
Yep, that's absolutely correct.
And that way we know you watched it until the very end. And we went over on time today, guys. This is about 20 minutes longer than we had anticipated for. But I feel like the topic is really just something very challenging and very academic and intellectual that we really need to be thinking about is how are we making our business decisions? Where are our ethics coming from? Are they coming from a greed factor? Are they coming from a 5-year plan objective? And have you really thought about what goes into making a choice, right? The need, the opportunity, and the rationale, and can you break down your choices in such a way as to make the best choice to correlate with your ethical perspective? And these are things that every major business owner, CEO, business leader has thought about before because they hire people like Chuck to come in and speak on these things, to train on these things, to train them personally on these things. So if you can learn it now as a small business, somewhere under $10 million, even if you're still looking to grow to your first 6 figures, train your mind, train your decision making now. And Chuck's got a lot of great content at chuckgallagher.com, You also have a podcast, and I should know the name of the podcast because I'm helping you build the website. But what's the name of the podcast?
Actually, we talk about it's Straight Talk Radio, and if you go to iTunes, you can either search it via Straight Talk Radio or by Chuck Gallagher, and would love to have you follow us there.
Yeah, I'm going to put that in the show notes below because I just love your presentation. You brought a lot to the table here today, Chuck. So thank you so much for joining us on the Small Business Success Summit.
Been my honor. Thanks, Owen.
We really enjoyed it. And thank you guys for joining us. If you have any questions for Chuck or myself regarding the topics that we talked about today, leave your questions in the comment section underneath this video if you're watching on the viewing page. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, you can answer in the comments underneath the video box, and feel free to tag myself or tag Chuck. We'd be happy to engage with you as best we can with some of the questions and some of the thoughts and feedback that you have on this interview. But overall, we're just thrilled that you came. We're thrilled that you're donating your time to grow your business, to grow your mindset, to grow your skill set. Because you could be the most motivated person in the world, right? Like I was as a young person, without any skill sets, and you're just going to dig yourself a hole. But by learning and growing and learning new things, doing what the competition is not doing, you're going to put yourself ahead. And that's exactly what our goal is here on the Small Business Success Summit. So thank you for joining us. We'll see you on the next installment, and I can't wait to see you then. Thanks so much.